right. Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to get started. Feel free to use the chat, say hi, introduce yourself. Feel free to throw some questions in at any point. I'll do my best as we go through to answer those questions. Um, I had done one of these in the fall and thought it went reasonably well, so I'm going to start trying to do these more regularly. Um, Really, like there's some good reasons why. I think first, I think we just need a space in nonprofits and government, social impact broadly, to just make sense on a regular basis of all the technology changes that are happening. The pace is just. Um, I feel like I'm living and breathing this every single day, and there's like one or two or three announcements every week that's like, oh my gosh, I should really pay attention to that. That could be really, really important. Um, and so we just need a place to sort of process these rapid developments, have a place to like ask questions, have some dialogue, and sort of get ourselves trained up on what makes sense, trying to figure out signal from the noise, um, and so that's part of this. The other part is, or second reason would be, we're going to do some learning activities. We're going to do some learning activities today on social impact chatbots. Um, so each one of these sessions, I'm going to want to do some learning, maybe bring some folks in who are, doing great stuff with AI and social impact. I also want to try out new stuff. Part of the learning process is just experimenting. So we'll get into some things that may not work, but we're gonna test these things out, and then really just trying to build a community of learners, and uh, that's hopefully over time that is something that we end up doing so together. So let me first, I'm going to structure each of these with first a little bit of update, like here's some stuff that happened in the last couple of weeks that maybe we should be paying attention to, and then get into a learning activity. And so that's what we're going to do now. All right. So a couple big things happened within the last few weeks on the social impact AI in that world. First, the Center for Public Sector AI, which had been led by Justin Brown and had involved a lot of the heads of departments of human services around the country, state departments, um, has merged with this Public Benefit Innovation Fund, which was a partnership of Renaissance and the Gates Foundation and the Balmer Group. And its new entity is the Center for Civic Futures. Um, uh, and just as a reminder for folks that are perhaps seeking funding in this space, that the Public Benefit Innovation Fund has released they had done something in the spring, but they released a more complete submit your proposal. I believe those are due August 15th. Um, I'm talking to a number of folks that are really interested in leveraging that funding, especially given the changing landscape around public benefits access that we're experiencing. So that's one big piece of news. Another is Code for America's just released a few weeks ago their state assessment on AI readiness, and I was really proud and pleased to do some of the field research on this report. The code team did an amazing job of getting it into a really wonderful, presentable format. I encourage you to go to the site and check out your state or states that you're interested in, and it's a really nice visual about where states are at. I have a whole upcoming blog series on delving into that, having done some of the research, and so look for that starting next Monday. And this week, the president's AI action plan was released. So I have just started to take a look. There's some early commentary out there on the internet. It's a lot of LinkedIn, a lot of Substack. So I think it's pretty important. This is setting AI sort of strategic direction for the country. So do take a look at that, and maybe we'll discuss some of the implications there in a future one of these live sessions. In AI tech news, like I said, super hard to keep up with everything that's going on, and I'll just breeze by these. I'm gonna do these short shrift, but we'll want to delve into some of these for sure in future sessions. One is that agents have been released for ChatGPT within their ChatGPT interface. If you, for all paid accounts, at some point that they were doing this in their pro accounts, within this week, I just got them yesterday in my account. They are deploying this agent capability, and it could be it's a beginning for sure, and it's imperfect, but it could be the beginning of some powerful tools in your hands. This is allowing the LLM to sort of take action on behalf of you, right? Through plain language prompting, and so that's something to start experimenting with. If you are a ChatGPT user, would encourage you to do so. Next month, the 5.0 model has been promised to come out, and Sam Altman, the CEO of ChatGPT, or of OpenAI rather, has not been understated about what some of the capabilities are of 5.0. So how much of a game changer it's going to be, we're not sure yet, but the rhetoric coming out of OpenAI is that it's going to be a big deal. So look for that over the next few weeks. Last month, a much more robust artifacts feature in Claude was released that allows you to essentially, like in plain language, build a light app in their interface and have it be referenceable to others to use. And so I think that's it's an interesting thing to explore, because it's creating, if you're a Claude user, it's creating some on-ramps that are easier perhaps to use than trying to figure out something yourself. And so I've started to explore artifacts, and I think there's some interesting starting points for me in some of my work. Finally, Google's Notebook LM. I've demoed this now many times. If you haven't gotten on yet to Notebook LM, it's worth, for at least the novelty value. Just very briefly, what it allows you to do is upload your sources or make reference to sources like a website, and then create a study guide for you, FAQs, questions, quizzes. But it has, like, the killer app part of this is it creates a podcast of two people speaking with each other, and it's darn good. It is pretty darn good. And so the upgrades to that, a few months ago, they allowed you to interrupt. We'll maybe do a demo at some point here. They allow you to interrupt and ask the podcasters a question, and they stop their podcast, and with the materials you've uploaded, they make sense of them and answer your question in real time, and then they go back to the podcast. So super cool. They've added a few really important features to that. One of them is it was only available in English, and so now it's available in different languages. They also are allowing you to change the length. So if you want a shorter podcast or a medium-sized podcast or a long podcast, they're allowing you to change the length of that feature, which again, definitely want to take a look at. So just in the last few weeks, that's some of the more important news. There's lots of other stuff to pay attention to for sure. We'll get into that as we go. All right, so let me now get into the meat of what I wanted this session to be about, which is social impact chatbots. And I'm going to do a demo in a minute, but I wanted to walk through some of the steps that are in this social impact chatbot workbook that I put together. If you want to use a QR code, it'll take you directly to the website where this exists. I will maybe put a link to it in the chat as well, so you can, if that's easier for folks, you'll be able to see it there. You can download the PDF. It's free. If you want like a nice printed version, you go to Amazon and buy a copy for yourself if that's what you'd like. Either way, let me walk through some of the steps. This is going to be, don't worry, this is like, if you're not technical, this is non-technical part of this. There's a whole lot of thinking around UX and sort of how to, if you build it, will they come kind of questions that this workbook gets into. And so it's for non-technical program managers, program directors, etc. You've heard about it, you want a chatbot, let's think through how to do that well. Because the truth is, I've seen organizations who have deployed their chatbot programmatically and had been disappointed. I've had some even say, like, I've talked to a few that says, we're not going to do it anymore. I've talked to others who said, well, we had a lot of use in the early going, but then we've had less more recently. And so doing sort of doing the planning work up front and then doing the ongoing engagement becomes pretty important. So let me walk through a couple of some of the salient points in this. I mean, obviously the first thing is, like, let's define your goals, right? What is the scope of a problem that is about your mission that a chatbot would help, right? That is, first and foremost, like, what we want to be considering, right? And so first part is do that in the workbook. Set your objectives, and then importantly, what does success look like? I mean, I know this sounds basic, but like, we often just want to get to the like, just give me the chatbot, right? What is it that you are gonna judge it by? And I think, how does it fit within your program, right? Like, for example, if you don't have a digital presence or a digital engagement already with your clients or your students or whoever this is targeting, how are you gonna, like, how does this actually fit with everything that's happening programmatically? If no one really goes to your website, how are you going to think about using this? So, for example, maybe it makes more sense to have the chatbot be SMS driven, because you actually have because you're dealing with young people in your program, and they you can reach them on text, right? So there's those kinds of things to think through in terms of setting your objectives, and then really thinking through. This is a lot of UX work, but like, it's worth doing it in at least a light way to deploy a chatbot, because a chatbot is essentially a digital product, right? It's a digital tool. So doing some of this UX work like you would like in building a website is important. I'm not saying you have to do, engage an agency and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, but the workbook is giving you some, some guidance about these light activities that are really worth doing. So another of them is like defining, um, uh, doing the user persona work, right? Which is defining your users and really trying to understand their needs from their perspective, and like, where does this chatbot fit with, what needs are you meeting, right? Where does it fit within their engagement with you as an organization or with your program? You have probably heard, we collectively have heard a lot about data and privacy and ethics as it relates to AI. These are important topics. Um, in some cases, they have like become blockers almost. Like, it's like, I don't want to do anything until I get all of this perfect. And my encouragement is always to spend some time thinking about it for sure. But don't, you're not going to get to perfect. The technology changes too quickly. And you're going to learn best when you're building something and then deploying it, right? That user feedback loop and that continuous improvement, it's what's going to allow you to sort of implement things in an ethical way. So you can see in each of these sections, there's some content, and then there's an exercise, right? And these exercises are just like, okay, well, what data may I need to inform this chatbot? Because I'm going to have to push data in so that the AI, or your chatbot knows how to respond, knows the content. So, like, where is that data coming from? So identifying that is important. And then any ethical issues. So, for example, if you are working with a community that has mental health concerns, right? The safeguards that you would want to put in to your chatbot around mental health issues, including triggering a notification. For example, I have seen this, that anyone who sort of expresses, an intent to self-harm, that would create a trigger or a notification to a program manager that this is something to address, right? Those are some of the kinds of ethical issues that are real. They're on the ground. They're like, they're not, not so sort of like, worried about AGI or whatever. They're like real issues. If you're going to deploy with a community, how do you think about doing so? This one's pretty important, right? Which is, okay, what do you actually want? What do you want people to do with your chatbot? In some cases, in many cases, we're seeing like things like support. Well, they'll just sort of be a knowledge base and answer questions, which is fine. I think it works in some cases, but I think you do want to define the functionality and give it some conversation flow. And what you see here is like, the user is likely to ask, or we want them to ask these kinds of questions. What should the chatbot respond as? Those Q&A pairs become pretty important later on in both building the model and make sure that content's in the chatbot or in the model that the AI is using. And later on, that's how you're going to evaluate. That's how you're going to QA the chatbot, right? It's like, is it answering these questions accurately, correctly, and consistently correctly, right? And so So this becomes like a really, really, really important task to do for any number of reasons. Should just say like in the old technology, like NLP technology, this is really was the fundamental thing, is that you would do Q&A pairs, and then you would the machine learning part of this is like, what are the intents you would have to match questions, and that's how we would evaluate, did we get the intent to the right question, and then you get an answer. With generative AI underneath the hood, you can still use these QA pairs, but it's the input or the intent is actually hitting like, okay, well, that answer might not be exactly what you put in, right? It's built to generate new content, and so the evaluation becomes more difficult. And we'll get to this in a second, but just to say, this conversation flow thing becomes really, really important. The other thing here is, what's the persona that you want to take the chatbot to take on? Is it helpful? Is there kinds of language or tone that you want the chatbot to take on? You're going to put that all into a system prompt, and to tell the chatbot how to show up. You know, there might be instances where you want the chatbot to be serious, right? There might be others you would say, I want you to be as helpful as possible. You might say things like, but if you don't know the answer, then I don't want you to give an answer, right? Like, it's okay. So that's really is like what becomes really important. What persona do you want the chatbot to take on? All right, so this is the tech part of the workbook, and this is the part where we recommend you either engage your internal tech staff rather, or external folks, or if you've got the skills to do it, that's fine. Again, this is a non-technical workbook, so this is really like, how do you compare some of the tools that are available to you? You'll engage that staff in a build, and the QA part of this all of a sudden becomes, again, really, really important. So we have a user feedback form and evaluation forms to leverage here in the workbook. I would say 50 to 60% of the work is really this feedback loop, getting real users on and using, and then giving you feedback, and then adjusting your prompts, adjusting the model based on the feedback that you're getting, right? That this actually becomes a big part of your programmatic work over time. You're going to pilot it first. In here we have a pilot plan as something to build off of, and then you're going to measure. So measuring the impact of a chatbot for social impact is actually a conglomeration of a couple different skills here, right? So ongoing, you're looking at is this thing correct and accurate, and do I need to sort of make any corrections, right? So you're looking at it, you're looking at sort of how the technology is performing. But at the same time, you're looking at are you making the impact? Is it hit, like, remember those goals we said at the top? Is it actually achieving any of those goals? Which you may pick up from the interactions, but it's more likely that you're going to have to do more typical program monitoring evaluation work, like survey work, etc., to see if the desired impact is actually happening. But there's, the third element here is this is happening in a user interface, right? And we're actually going to go through in just a second, so hang on, some different interfaces, and one of which I think is sort of exciting. But you've got like the interface too, and if the interface is blah, that maybe I don't want to use the interface. So then that's affecting whether I use the chatbot or my impression of the chatbot. It might also then be affecting the impact of the work. So you've got chatbot model performance. You've got, is the interface the right interface? And then you've got, um, is it having an impact? By the way, the other thing on interface is language, right? LLMs are great at different language interactions, um, and so if that though is an issue for the communities that you're serving, um, that's also something to monitor. In is it doing the correct thing in this language, right? And then after you've piloted again, you launch. We in the nonprofit sector have a little too much pilot, and then it doesn't go anywhere. Uh, so really encouraging folks to, if something doesn't work, don't get too hung up on trying to fix it, so that you can get to a point of broader deployment. There's some suggested budget in here. So that, how do you think about a scale deployment? What are, it doesn't have numbers, but like, here are the things that you need to consider in putting together a budget for a chatbot at scale. All right. So again, you can download this with the link that's in the chat here. You can use a QR code. And if you need assistance, reach out to us on this. This is something we spend a lot of time thinking about. The next thing is, I'm going to show you a chatbot that I've built in a couple different modalities. We didn't talk about this too much in the workbook because the assumption has been up to this date that the chatbot is literally like a text, right? I'm texting a response, I'm getting a text back. But the world we're moving into is multimodal, so I'm going to show you a little bit of that in this next part. So give me 1 second, and I'm going to tee this up. I'm going to share, first of all, this one. All right. So this is essentially a chatbot, but it's a custom GPT in ChatGPT. And this is a donor advisor chatbot that I've built. And I've given it a system prompt to essentially say, hey, there's all these data sources out there about how nonprofits are performing, including on their own website, but you got evaluators, you got places where nonprofits are submitting data. Use that information to advise someone on their donation. And then I put in, give me a list of top-rated nonprofits that are working on climate change. You can ask this anything. So feel free to do so. And what you're seeing here is that, and I've prompted it to give these kinds of responses. I said, tell me what the mission is, give me any ratings that are available or any feedback, and then put the donate link from their website so that someone can donate. That's what I've prompted the chatbot to do. And you can see it's doing a reasonably good job of identifying climate organizations. It then is also giving me other options, like, would you like BIPOC-led organizations, or would you like it be filtered by a certain region? Maybe I want to give to climate organizations working in my city, right? So that's what's happening in a custom GPT, which is essentially a chatbot within OpenAI's ChatGPT environment. There's also let's see here. I'm going to first show home. So I also have this on a website. And so I'm going to show you essentially some of the same content within the chatbot on the website. And in this case, maybe I'll ask for, I'd like to donate to CDC's, let's see if it picks up on community development corporations in Cleveland. Let's see what it says, if anything. All right, so it's coming in streaming. It's OpenAI, ChatGPT beneath, under the hood, but this is it's giving me a little bit of information about CDCs. It's saying, oh, they're playing a crucial role in improving and revitalizing communities. So it's affirming my interest in community development corporations, and it's doing some of the same stuff where it doesn't have a rating. It's telling you, I don't think I have a rating for this. So you see this is a chatbot that's live on a website. Now I want to show you a multimodal, and in this case, an avatar. And so this is sort of the next wave. You're starting to see a lot of relational AI. In fact, it's the number one use case for LLMs in 2025 is this ongoing relationship. Sometimes that's happening through a chat window, but sometimes that's happening with a human-like avatar or a more playful avatar. So let's listen in here.
Hello, what can I help you with your charitable giving?
I would like to give to environmental organizations working in New York City.
Great choice. Supporting environmental organizations can make a significant impact, especially in urban areas like New York City. Let me help you find some highly rated nonprofits that focus on environmental issues within NYC. 1. Environmental Defense Fund, EDF. Focus. EDF works on issues related to climate change, ecosystems, and human health, among others. Ratings. Charity Navigator, 4 stars. Candid earns a seal of transparency. 2. New York Presbyterian Hospital's Community Health Needs Assessment. Focus.
Okay, so you get a sense there of sort of what, it's a little imperfect, but you get a sense of like where this is going, right? And I do think that a big question moving forward for social impact chatbots is going to be what's the right modality? Do I want to have a more playful? First of all, do I want to have voice, or do I just want to have text, or do I want to have an avatar? And is that avatar more human-like, more playful, like cartoonish? If it's human-like, things like gender and race and ethnicity become important considerations for how that avatar shows up, for how your chatbot shows up, right? And so there's a whole new window that's multimodal, voice driven and video driven, that is coming, down the road, but not. It's like in the next 6 months we're going to start seeing a lot more of these. So let me stop there. That is, I think, what I have today. If there's any questions, feel free to put those into the chat. I'll see what I can do about them. And if not, I really appreciate everyone coming today, and I'm probably going to split this up into some follow-up videos. I'm intending to do these every 2 weeks or so. So if you've got things you'd like me to cover, or hey, if you want to come on and talk about your work on AI and social impact, happy to have you do so. So again, thanks, and if there aren't any questions, we'll close for now. Take care, everybody.